Hello everyone and welcome to the first, BoP performance. I'm going to make it into a bit of a car profile, and as you can see by the title and also what's in front of you, it's the Alfa Romeo 4C Group 3 car. So we're going to look at this car first. It was going to be the Porsche, but a bit of a delay, so we'll wait for the Porsche until later on. We'll do it alphabetically unless there's a request for a specific car. This Alfa, as you can tell, looks bloody good. I actually love the design of this car, and with it being the 4C, if you know much about the real car, it's obviously it's got a carbon fibre monocoque basically, so it's a very light car. It's an MR car, so the engine is in the back, and this car in Group 3 form is turbocharged as well. And in this car you're going to have to rev the crap out of it to really get the best performance out of the car. And that's what we're going to focus on. So what we're going to do now is look at the 5 tracks. I've not Bathurst out because I'm not consistent enough at it. 5 tracks that I mentioned last time for each of the cars. For this car in particular, for the balanced performance. So we're looking at Brands Hatch first, and this is the fastest lap. Now I did mention this last time that we're going to base all this on optimum lap times, not just the fastest, because you may not get the fastest lap in, as you will see later on another track. Fastest lap was really early on, however the optimum was much quicker. So at Brands Hatch, you can see how I'm driving at the moment as we come into this left-hander. The one thing I found with this car in particular is it doesn't like curbs. Now I'm assuming this is due to the fact that it's quite lightweight and the engine's in the back, so when you hit a curb with the front end it just wants to fly because it's a bounce, of course. In terms of stability, as you can see, you can really rag the car and it's fairly stable when curbs aren't involved. As you come up to this right-hander, now this one is a very tricky corner in this car because obviously of the curb, you're hitting the curb first with the front end. It's very high, it just wants to throw the car really far into the air, so do be careful with that when you're racing this car. As we come into the last few corners now of Brands Hatch, as you can see we're up on our time. We've put in a fairly decent lap. I wanted to show you each of the laps so you know I'm not sandbagging any of the cars. If I am driving one of these cars wrong, perhaps you think I should be changing in a different place, let me know. However, I did do the test with this car and revving the nuts out of it was the best bet. So we get a best time of 1:22.4, but actually our optimums are 1:22.2, and we'll have a look at that afterwards. So we'll go to Dragon Trail, and as you can see this is a track which is early on with the fastest lap, and this one is critical. So I mentioned about the curbs and the car not liking curbs. As you can see, I'm having to be very balanced with the throttle. Once I'm on a curb, the car's settled, it's fine, it's accelerating away, but if you hit a curb with this car, it's going to go flying. As we come into this right-hander, again we're going to have to be very careful. As you can see, we're not really applying much throttle. We want the weight to be balanced in this car, of what little of weight there is. Obviously it's had a weight increase with 100 and I think it's 105%. I'll double check that at the end with the balance of performance. But as you can see, we're just racing around here. It's very stable on throttle when curbs aren't involved. And as you see when we come down to this right-hander, it's very stable out of that corner. You can really put the power down early, unlike other cars where you'll get a lot of wheel spin. So as we come into here, you can just see full throttle much earlier than most other cars. Now you could do it even more aggressive than that, and I did do it more aggressive eventually by the end of it. As you see, a 30.9 set to 2, that's down to 30.6 by the end of it. But I do the chicane very well. Now that chicane is the reason why I couldn't get a faster time later on. However, the optimum works out all okay. Because of that chicane, you hit that and the front end just wants to fly you into the barrier, and I will accept I hit the barrier multiple times. So this car is very risky at this track because of the curbs, so do keep that in mind if you race this car at Dragon Trail. My optimum in the end turned out to be a 1:36.9 at Dragon Trail. So we go to Interlagos. Now I'm on lap number 11. I've not really spoken about the laps in this test. I'm doing a minimum of 10. Now if I think there's a little bit more time in it, and I do believe that in this car on this track at this point, I will do another lap just to make sure I've got the right time in. But it's mainly the middle sector here. Obviously it can be quite tricky sometimes to nail the perfect middle sector, or at least a good middle sector. We're not after the perfect lap, we're after just a good lap. And as you can see, I'm even with the time at the moment, but look at that, we jump up a 10th, and that's sort of the 10th that I was looking for. So we continue on, and as you can see on the right hand side, the times are all in the 1:31s. They're not in the 1:30s, and I know, for example, the Porsche 911 is in the 1:30s here, so this appears to be a weak track, mainly maybe to do with the curbs. And one reason we got rid of Bathurst is because of the undulations. Obviously we have that here in Interlagos, and at Brands Hatch, of course. So coming up towards the end of the lap at Interlagos, you can see I'm staying in second gear here. First gear, there's not much speed to it. Second gear, you can get out really quickly. I say the car is turbocharged and it's using that a lot. I have to come off the throttle a little bit from the bump on the inside of that curb down the left hand side. Coming through here, again, being very careful on the curb there. Once the throttle's down in this car, because the engine's at the back and it's rear wheel drive, it's fine. It will literally just power through, and because all the weight's over the rear wheels, it can go for it. So it's fairly stable in that sense. It's a bit like the Porsche. But we come across the line, we get a 130.9, but that puts us down to a 130.8 optimum. Now we go to Nurburgring. Obviously this is one of my favourite tracks, so I know this very well. And again, we've got undulations and we've got curbs. And one thing you'll also see here is the braking a little bit more, because we need to talk about trail braking in this car. But even so, we continue on and doing this first sector. I'm going to be careful of curbs. So as you see, we're being a bit tentative with that inside, and we're also going to be very tentative there, under 50% throttle. Very easy to catch the car. We see we run a bit too wide there, but that's fine. That's sort of what you do in this car, or in any car at this track. And as you see, we're coming to here, we're up on our time. Now, trail braking in this car can be quite tricky. Now the reason it's tricky is because, as I say, the engine is in the back, or between the axles should I say. It's an MR car, so when you brake or trail brake, all the weight's coming forward, and it's going forward onto a front end which literally has no weight to it. So the rear can get a bit unstable under braking, so do keep that in mind. The brake balance in these cars is all set to 0 when I do these tests, so potentially you might want to bring that brake balance potentially forward or back, depending on what you want to do. I maybe put it to the back a little bit, sorry, to the front a little bit if it's oversteering, and you will see that in a minute that it does do that. So as you can see, we're still up, we're 3 tenths up at the moment. We are going to lose that gap a little bit when we get to the chicane. As I say, the car doesn't like curbs and such, so you never want to hit the first curb here at Nurburgring that hard. So as you see, you just see the rear come out a little bit. We nailed the second part fine. It was fairly stable at that point. Continue on towards the last corner, and round we go. And the optimum here we get is a 155.134. That's total. I do go and do another lap, which is why you don't necessarily see it bottom right. But I do have a 155.134. Suzuka, again, we're near the end of our runs. So this is how we know we're getting there with the times. Again, trail braking. Coming into here, you're going to see the rear just constantly wanted to just come out a little bit. When I first started this, you see my earlier laps, 201, 159, 2. I was struggling with the first corner a little bit, because trail braking, that's what you do in that corner. The rear constantly wanted to come out, so you constantly slide in the car, and obviously at that point braking is not efficient enough. Coming round this right hander now, end of sector 1. Again, because you're really revving the nuts off this, it can be quite handy to rev it and just get a little extra turn in, just to get round the corners. See, we're slightly up here. Tidgney 1, Tidgney 2, going to be very tricky, but because these curbs are flat, it's a bit easier in this car, and we can straighten these out straight away. And as I say, it's very stable on acceleration, this car. So, you know, in terms of stability, we do rank stability, remember, and we're going to look at that after this Suzuka run. We'll look at where I've ranked it stability wise. We've got top speed, so I did mention about Conrod Straight at Bathurst being the top speed measurement. It's now going to be at Suzuka here, so from Spoon to 130R, what's that speed when we get to the cones? And as you see, I'm using cones just to make sure it's a balanced and balanced test for all the cars. I can make sure, you know, the brake markers are right and what I'm doing. Just going to Spoon here, we do this very well. Through we go, and we do go up on our lap again on the next lap, but I think I spin it somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. It might have been the hairpin. I was just pushing extremely hard. And as I say, I'm not after the perfect lap. Perfect lap, you can always go faster in these cars. We're after just an optimum lap where we can see that the time relatively is, and the optimum lap is more towards the perfect lap. Coming into here, I say it doesn't like curbs. These are raised. It's very sketchy at the Castillo triangle here, so do be careful there. And as you see, full throttle out, which is not too much hassle. And we cross the line, and our optimum here is a 158.506, and you can see that actually bottom right as well. So now we go to the spreadsheet of marvellous things. So you can see the power 106, weight 105. That weight does actually help the car. I did the test without BoP accidentally prior, which is why this video is slightly delayed. The weight does help. You can see all the times there and then the current at the end, and I've put my comments against each car so that if I come back to them I know what's going to change. So the car definitely doesn't like curbs, so keep that in mind, especially when you hit them front end on accelerating, because the weight's all at the back. Turbo in the lower rev range, so if you change gear early, if you then hit the throttle, you might find the car loses traction. So in the end, just rev the nuts out of it, you will get more, the car's more stable at that sense. And it's very easy to catch the car as well, so do keep that in mind. If you do lose it, it's very easy to catch. So at that point I give it a risk indicator of 4 because it doesn't like the curbs, but it's fairly stable and you can catch it. 1 obviously being very easy car to drive, 10 being it tries to kill you at every corner, avoid. But basically what we're aiming for at the end of all of this test is the riskier cars probably being slightly faster than the non-risky ones, because then if you do want to win, you're going to have to go for a risky car, and in that sense it should balance out because consistency would be better in the more stable cars. So that's the first BoP test done. Anything you don't like there, let me know. 155 miles an hour as well when we got to 130R. Anything you don't like or anything you want me to change further, do let me know. I did see the request about putting an oval in, but oval actually uses different balance of performance to the circuit, so do keep that in mind. That's why I can't do it. But that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later on this week with the Aston Martin. So ciao for now.